We have a special guest this evening that's going to tell us all about Measure U. And in the meantime, she is making history. Councilmember Liz Alessio, soon to be Supervisor Alessio, on an all-female, first ever County Board of Supervisors. Councilmember Liz Alessio, welcome. Tell us all about Measure U.
Measure U is not a tax increase. That is the most important thing. It will not impact you financially in a tax increase at all. It's taking our existing Measure T, our transportation dollars, extending the life of those, and allowing flexibility with the financial part of it, so we can address our streets and roads and congestion, which we can't do now. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up and start the PowerPoint here. I'm going to walk through this quickly because I know we are limited on time. All right. Well, Rose, thanks for letting me have this opportunity to talk about Measure U. I think a lot of people, with everything that's going on in the world, and all the different elections and measures out there, it can be a lot. And so I wouldn't be surprised if folks have not heard a lot about Measure U, even though we have a campaign. I'm honored to be on this campaign for Yes on Measure U, because yes, it makes sense. And yes, it's a better program than what we have right now with Measure T. Measure T is great. It was voted in by the voters in 2012. This was the extension of the flood tax. And so it was voted in 2012 and became active in 2018. Right now, the lifeline for Measure T goes to 2043. But Measure U has some setbacks. It has some restrictions that don't benefit what we need now. They don't have that flexibility. Measure T, you'll see, does provide $25 million countywide for local streets and roads for maintenance. In Napa County, in the city of Napa, we receive about 12 million of that 25 million that comes in. And you'll see on the bottom what we've been able to complete so far with Measure T. 130 completed projects, 6.2 miles of bike lane, over 26,000 feet of sidewalk, 320 ADU curbs and ramps, and over 60 miles of streets and roads. So good work, but we know we need more. Measure U extends it becomes a 30-year measure. And so it goes through 2055. The total gain in this measure is $1.2 billion countywide. As I said in the beginning, this is not a tax. It's not a new tax. It's the existing 50 cents tax that Measure U will replace, and will allow more total funding and flexibility for all the jurisdictions. NVTA can bond with this. NVTA can bond against future revenues for large projects. And you'll see in a minute what I'm talking about. The dollar right now is increasing in value about what CPI is, and that's about 4%. While at the same time, labor and supplies is increasing around 14 to 15%. So it's creating this ongoing 10% delta, this 10% gap between the value of the dollar and what it's going to cost to address our streets, roads, and traffic congestion. So bonding is not like a school bond. It's not taxing on anybody's property. It's advancing funds now. It's similar to purchasing a house and being able to borrow that money to be able to do a big project. Maybe it's a remodel. Maybe it is a purchase of a house. But it's not something you're going to see on your property taxes at all. It does memorialize this and allows for flexibility and to update it every 5 years, which we don't have in Measure T. And again, that flexibility for each jurisdiction to have up 5% of maintenance revenues to address their specific transportation projects. What Calistoga needs and St. Helena needs is very different than what City of Napa needs or American Canyon needs. So this allows local control for each jurisdiction in addition to what Yountville needs and what the Napa County unincorporated areas need. So it does allow for updates in the maintenance of effort, which is staying on top of the roads and the streets. And one thing it does also allow, which is really critical, is this $56 million of safety and congestion relief projects. So that is something that is over the life of this bond that we can advance forward to address major congestion, the pinch points getting in and out of this valley, whether it be day in and day out workforce, the traffic, visitors, or evacuation if we need. You will see that Measure T is, in terms of the pavement index score, it's really capped. At this point, moving forward, because of that devaluing of the dollar and the increase of cost, you will see that our PCI scores, our pavement scores, are continue to deteriorate with Measure T, which again is why we need to pass Measure U, and I'm hoping that we've passed it tonight. And there's that delta you'll see as it talks about the 4.6 annual increase, while there's a 14.1% cost increase. So that doesn't help us catch up. That only allows us to get further behind. Measure U, in terms of the bonding, we kind of talked about that versus the pay to go process. Think about if you had to save every dollar before you purchased a home, let alone purchase a car. Some people might be able to do that, but very few people can do that. So this allows us to address these big issues. I'm going to go ahead and pass. I feel like I've talked about that a lot. This is the revenue distribution that will happen once Measure U is passed. So what's going to happen is that each jurisdiction is actually going to have more money and more flexibility in the revenues that they're receiving so far from Measure T. The projects that we want to work on, these are all regional projects that benefit all of us. As we know, the South Saskatchewan Junction on the other side of Butler Bridge, what a great success. That is proof of concept. That's a Napa Valley Transportation Authority project, which I'm just the most recent former chair of that board. For 2 years. I was chair, and then prior to that, 2 years vice chair. So we fixed we fixed that corridor. It's safer, it flows, but what happens, and we knew this was going to happen, it stops at the airport, Highway 12 and 29, and that's where the backup is. We need to take that project and we need to land it there so people have a free flow to go through. They have the option of roundabouts, and it'll open that up. So that is priority number one. With that, there's roundabout at Devlin. There's addressing 121 and 12. And also we'll be opening up, we'll be advancing the corridor through American Canyon through more roundabouts. And that's kind of immediate. There's a $6 million approval where we can take that and we can improve the corridor through American Canyon. $56 million is not going to fix all these problems. We know it won't. But what it does, it allows us to create project-ready plans that we can show the federal government and the state government, so we can actually bring money in to achieve these and complete these projects. South Saskatchewan Junction, I'm going to throw a guess. I'm kind of forgetting. I think it was around $46 million. If we had to do that today, it would probably be around $70 million. And that gives you an idea. To be competitive for state and federal grants, we need to show that we have shelf-ready projects ready to go. Let's get started. All we need is the money, the federal funds or the state funds. So we need to be competitive in this very competitive world of grants. This talks about evacuation, having an evacuation center for, as we know, with climate change, we continue to see more and more fires. We don't want to be a paradise. Upper Valley, this is their focus. They really want to create better evacuation routes. We want to add an evacuation center and some evacuation signs when we need them. This is just what Measure Measure U, how it stacks up against Measure T. Again, as we keep saying, this is not a tax increase, not at all. This is just a smarter program. This funds regional traffic relief, which Measure U does not do. It funds emergency highway evacuation projects, which Measure T does not do. It uses tax proceeds to borrow money, which allows, again, that advancing. Memorializes the distribution of funds while, being able to revisit it every 5 years to make sure it's equitable. For instance, just even the Costco in Napa is going to change that funding. So something like that has that much more sales tax impact or TOT is going to shift this. And so this makes it fluid and flexible. The overall funding we talked about, expanding bike and ped requirements. That's something that is a priority for the city of Napa and county of Napa, that we can do more now than we did before. There's always oversight. There's an oversight committee, tax committee on this, on Measure T, and there will be on Measure U. The tough part is that this requires 2/3 of a vote. It's not a general tax. This is very restricted, specific funds. So therefore, one, you know where your money's going, but two, it does take 2/3 of a vote. So I'm praying that happened and we can make these improvements for our community. We did voter polling, and the voter polling showed in 2023, 79% approval. When we did this again last April in 2024, we were at 81%. So that's great. That's without any voter opposition or an opposition, if you will. So let's hope that really shows, that pans out. And there you go, rebuilding our roads and fixing our traffic without raising taxes. I think it's a win-win all around. So I'm really hoping our residents, our voters, understood that, could see that in the ballot message as they receive it. There's a couple other things on the ballot. There's 2 state measures on the ballot. Then you're going to see this measure, Measure U. You will see the school bond measure, NVUSD has Measure B, that'll be on there, and then the city's Measure G. So there'll be 5 measures for voters that they've looked at and will be going through. And just remember, yes on you, and really hope that really helped, that really happened and panned out for everybody. Because what we're doing now is we're already frustrated with the streets and roads. We already have dangerous corridors at intersections. We know that the majority of greenhouse gas is coming from emissions, from vehicle emissions. We have goals of what's called Vision Zero, which is no serious or fatal deaths due to car collisions and pedestrian and cyclists. And also we are striving for net zero by 2030 with greenhouse gases. So this can only help, in addition to improving your streets and roads in each jurisdiction in our unincorporated area.
So we heard from Councilmember Liz Alessio. So yes on you. Yes on you. Thank you for joining us. Have a great night and a wonderful week.